The British in particular, the propagandists, do not like what I am telling people. The truth is, the imperial British system is the problem, and it needs to be removed, and we can do it. We can do it in a structured manner, and everyone in the world can go back to living in peace. That's what we want to do. So all over the world, the British have honed a statecraft skill, and that statecraft skill is called a colour revolution.
This is the weaponization of population movement, which the British have done before. Like there's something that's wonderful that's been distilled from natural law, from Christianity into common law, and then it's been exported to Pakistan, India, South Africa, Canada, the United States, New Zealand, Australia, Kenya, perhaps some other places as well, that are all grounded in this central notion of sovereignty, of human beings being sovereign. And then what we've been dealing with for hundreds of years are these imperial elites that are out to destroy the English and the English notion of sovereignty. Zionism in Israel is a project of the British imperial elites. And also the Schofield Bible that created born-again Christian Zionism. Christian Zionists, like somehow Jesus would be okay with the slaughter of Gazans. No, that's not what Jesus is about. The British also cultivated the extreme forms of Islam, Wahhabism, Taliban, ISIS, Al-Qaeda, and sidelined the traditional notion of Islam as expressed by Sufism.
Traveling to a restrictive country with internet censorship? A VPN is the answer. And surf the internet with no restrictions.
When tyranny becomes law, rebellion becomes a duty. So said Thomas Jefferson. Go to bit.ly/lawful tax protest or bit.ly/make war history and find out why it is a criminal offence to pay central government or local government taxes in the UK. And let's make war history. Hey Graham, how are you?
Very well, thank you.
Good, good. And this is Friday the 29th of August, 1833, England time.
It is, and just to let you know, I've just come out of the pub with a pint of Guinness and a cigarette in my hand to do the podcast, but I will try and stay as sensible as possible.
Yes, and Guinness is a traditional Irish brew, is it not?
It's actually English.
Is it?
Stout is English, yeah, and you'll see the what's his name? Something Connor, the guy who's running
Conor McGregor.
Conor McGregor. He has actually created his own brewery in Dublin, or just outside Dublin, with a proper Irish stout. And what he's saying is, this is the Irish stout, Guinness is the English stout.
Right.
So I drink Guinness in gratitude.
All right. Well, look, just before we started recording, you mentioned the court case regarding the hotel in Epping. Yeah. And I think also, we can also cover what is going on in England currently with the raising the flag. Do you want to start by just giving a little introduction about yourself and the English Constitution Society and the English Constitution Party?
So the basis of it, my name is Graham Moore. I have but read law for 30 years. So I've got a great interest in constitutional cases. England in particular, obviously, the common law of England, the Constitution of England, the legal history of England, rather than a legal historian. And what we do, we have an English Constitution Society, which we do seminars all over the country, and we teach people about the English Constitution. We do have one. It's a very good constitution. We exported it to the United States of America and most of the Commonwealth countries around the world. And we have the English Constitution Party. What does that mean? It's an English Constitution Party. England is the brand. The Constitution is the manifesto. And we represent the constituents, not a political party. So the brand itself is England. And our manifesto is the Constitution. So that's basically what I do. So I lead the political party, and I am the president of the English Constitution Society, and we educate people. And by the way, if there's anyone watching this and you look behind me, these are real books, real law books, and I use them in the High Court in England. And what you'll see just behind me there is the Norfolk Distillery. It's called the English Distillery, and it won the Global Award for the best single malt whiskey in the world. So there's another one here because I've just moved to Devon, and this one is a classic, and it's Dartmoor single malt whiskey. Not that everyone thinks I'm some sort of alcoholic. I'm not. I'll just promote the fact that we have this ability to, with absolute pure mineralized water, filtered through the earth of England and the rocks and etc. of England, to be able to create distilled whiskey, single malt, not some of the other nasty stuff, but we come out with some of the best whiskies in the world.
All right, great. Thank you so much. Right, and I'm going to draw a parallel with whiskey that you talked about and the English Constitution. But before I do that, I just want to let you know. I mean, you know, I'm Muslim. I don't drink, right? So
yeah.
A lot of what you're saying is lost on me. I have no principles. However, I have learnt from you and from Ian Burlingame and many others, I suppose, in the common law space, promoting the value of English, of England, that there is something remarkable about the English Constitution. And from my understanding, at the heart of it all is the notion of self-sovereignty. Sovereignty. I'm sovereign over myself, my property, my choices, my actions, as are you. And we come together as independent, sovereign beings, equal in value and equal in front of the law, in the eyes of the law.
Correct.
And in the eyes of God.
Yeah, in the eyes of God. Just to make sure you're aware of this, I know you may be a Muslim, but you don't know what you're missing. Right? so I'll have a drop of this, and
you knock yourself out. You're a sovereign being. You have that, right? So there's some that now to connect it to the Dartmouth whiskey, right? There's something really absolutely wonderful you're saying that's been distilled from England, from the land of the English. Just like there's something that's wonderful that's been distilled from natural law, from Christianity into common law, and then it's been exported to Pakistan, India, South Africa, Canada, the United States, New Zealand, Australia, Kenya, perhaps some other places as well, that are all grounded in this central notion of sovereignty, of human beings being sovereign. And then what we've been dealing with for hundreds of years are these imperial elites that are out to destroy the English and the English notion of sovereignty.
Correct. So the best way of putting this to everyone, and again, I have to be a bit careful depending on the platform this goes out on.
This will go out on YouTube and Rumble and Odyssey and Podbean and ThreeSpeak.
So the English
and X.
Constitution particularly forbids any type of religious law taking control of you. And it isn't just about Sharia, for example. It forbids Sharia in England, but it forbids Jewish law in England, and it forbids Christian laws in England. What I mean by that is that the local priest or vicar or whatever you want to describe them as can't lock you up because you didn't come to church at the weekend and fine you, £5 or £10 or whatever and lock you in the vestry. So what the English realised was there was a group of people in the background that was using religion as their enforcement, if you want to call it that, of religious law. And that's not what it's about, right? So if you go back in Islam, there's one religion that doesn't comply, but Christianity and Islam are both linked together because they refuse something called usury, right?
Yep.
Which is an enslavement of the people. There's one particular religion, and a sideline of that religion is the Roman Catholic Christianity system, right? Which is why people out there are not understanding that Russia, for example, is Orthodox Christian. It's nothing to do with the Roman Catholic system. It's nothing to do with Islam. It's nothing to do with any other type of religion. It just goes to the word of Jesus Christ, right? People need to understand, and people don't understand this at the moment, that Islam respects Jesus Christ.
Right? Oh, he's a prophet.
Exactly.
We believe in the second coming.
So people don't realise there is a particular reason, and I have to be very careful what I'm saying. We refer to them as the little hats, and not all of them. There is a particular clan that want to see Islam and Christianity fight each other.
Yes. Now, Graham, that's very good, because I have this notion, and this is through talking to you and listening to you and Ian Burlingham and Alex Craner. So one, I'm pretty clear that Zionism and Israel is a project of the British imperial elites.
Agreed.
And also the Schofield Bible that created born-again Christian Zionism. Christian Zionists, like somehow Jesus would be okay with the slaughter of Gazans because it would mean it would accelerate the second coming. No, that's not what Jesus is about. But also, the British also cultivated the extreme forms of Islam, Wahhabism, Taliban, ISIS, Al-Qaeda, and sidelined the traditional notion of Islam as expressed by Sufism, which is the spiritual tradition. And the thing about, from when you say is like, the English Constitution doesn't allow for religious laws to take hold, because if it did, then people who aren't of that faith are no longer sovereign. Like if we have Sharia and you're not a Muslim, well, you're no longer sovereign to make your own determinations and decisions. Or if this was a Christian law or whatever, I don't know how that would look, but I had to go to church. Well, I'm no longer sovereign. So there's something about that I think is so liberating and so dangerous to the imperial elites that they keep whittling away. And you said that it's a fine constitution. Now, I take exception to your statement. And here's why. The second, say, you know about the Online Speech Act, Online Safety Act, and how the Ofcom, and for most people in the United States, right, there's a regulatory body that's regulating what can be said online, and is saying to American companies like 4chan, you can't say this in the UK. And there's lawyers like Preston Byrne saying, no, we have the First Amendment. You can't do that, right? So in that way, the Bill of Rights, they don't seem that accessible, that clear cut to no, you cannot suppress my speech.
So just to make sure I correct you on that.
Right. Please, I need to be clear.
The American Constitution came from the English Constitution.
That is clear. That I'm clear about.
100%, right? So and you have to understand, people listening to this need to understand that the first rebellion happened in if I remember rightly, somewhere in the 1600s. It was called the Bacon Rebellion in America, and it was nothing to do with bacon. That was the name of the guy. That's the name of the guy, right? And they were suppressed by the ruling elites, which were the Scottish, the English, the Irish, etc. They're not British. They're the ruling elites. And people need to understand that we created in England the English Bill of Rights to protect the Magna Carta, to protect people's rights. And in England, we state that you can worship whoever you want. You can be a pagan, you can be a Muslim, you can be a Hindu, you can be anything you want. You can be a Sikh, etc. I mean,
an atheist.
You can be anything you want. But what you can't do is bring that religion into the governance of England. And if you do that, that's where the English Constitution stops you, right? So one of the reasons you've hit the nail on the head with saying that, why does no one understand or talk about the English Constitution or the English Bill of Rights? And that is because British imperialism wants to put a stop to it because they are globalists.
Yeah.
And once people understand what's actually going on, Zionism, technically, is... So Jesus Christ was against the Roman Empire, right? If you go and actually read the old Gospels, you will understand that he was against the Roman Empire. That means he was against imperial forces, right? Mm-hmm. Well, that's what we're saying. And there was one group of people that pushed it, that he was against. It is noted as, people refer to it as the synagogue of Satan, right? That is the problem. And once people understand, there's many good Jewish people, don't get me wrong, but unfortunately there is what I describe as a Jewish mafia. And the Jewish mafia, the Jesuits and jihadists are the same group of people. They may speak different languages. They may profess to support different religions, but they are the same group of people. And what we've got to understand is this is all orchestrated against, they want us to rise up against each other in this country. And what we've got to do is use the law and correct people on what the law actually says, what Jesus Christ actually says, and push forward in that way. So
absolutely.
Imperialism, so again, I often say to people, most people don't realise where the term British comes from. Well, it comes from 1948, the British Nationality Act 1948, and the British Nationality Act as amended in 1981. And if we was to abolish that, right, you would go back to being a Christian nation, because we'd be able to push it forward. And one of the things that people don't understand, the British Nationality Act repealed at Schedule 4 of the British Nationality Act 1948, and in Schedule 4, it repealed something that was crucial, and it repealed the part of the Act of Settlement of 1701, where it said to be in any position of authority, including MPs, lords, police constables, military, local councillors, mayors, etc., you must be born of English parents, plural, right? Mm-hmm. Now, it doesn't matter what religion you are, if you live in England and you respect English law, you would understand, and the people listening to this would understand, it was put in place, if you know legal history, to stop the Dutch, right, who were the same race as us. It was to stop them from taking advantage of England and our rights. So it was nothing to do with race, but it was to do with culture, and it was to do with nationality, because the English had a set of rights, not rules, rights, and they were God-given rights, and we respected that in this country. And what the British Nationality Act of 1948 and 1981 did was it created British nationality, allowed the people to come in and then go into positions of authority, MPs, police constables, mayors, etc. And it is a simple thing to abolish that, which happened in, there was a very similar act passed for Protestants in 1708, and it was soon abolished in 1711 by Queen Anne, because it started to destroy the culture of England. So they abolished it. They removed the Protestants that come from all different countries in Europe, not from Asia or other countries, from Europe. And what they said was, it's destroying our culture and it's destroying the country of England. So they abolished it. People need to understand this is not a racial issue, right? I'm pretty adamant that any form of ethno-nationalists are wrong. I consider us to be God's children, right? Yes. But the culture of living together in peace and harmony comes from the Bible, and much of that comes from Islam. If you understand it correctly, right? What I mean by that is not what's being projected. Then we can start getting close to where we should be, and not where the British imperialist system gets us. And just to finish on this, you're absolutely correct. It was the British in the late 1800s that created Wahhabism. It created what you now know more recently as ISIS, the people who just went into Syria, right, and took control of Syria. The point of that was the Israelis.
Yes, and I think also the British as well.
Yeah, no, I agree.
HCS owned by the British, owned and supported and triggered and manufactured. Now the thing about the it just comes down to sovereignty. I don't have sovereignty unless you do.
Correct.
Because otherwise, if I have sovereignty over you, well, then you don't have sovereignty. So everybody has to have sovereignty. Everybody has to be equal before the law. But I think where people don't know, and as I'm learning, I'm still struggling with, is how to resort to or use these, the Bill of Rights, and what was the other one you talked about? That was before that.
The Act of Settlement, and there was the Bill of Rights. So there was a Bill of Rights of 1688, Scotland adopted the Bill of Rights because they didn't want to be controlled by the Roman Catholic or the Roman Empire, if you want to describe it as that. So the Scots adopted the claim of right, which means they put their hand out to the English, and the English said, "We get it." It was tyranny. It was pure tyranny, and we all became We was a brotherhood of nations. It was only in 1706, 1707 when the British Parliament, as a political parliament, in other words, drawing in the two nations, took control and centralised, which is exactly what the Romans did, right? So the Romans were not nice people, full stop, right? And people need to understand there is a big difference between. So the English and the Scots, the Welsh and the Irish can get on with each other. There's not an issue with that. The political union is what's the problem.
Yes. Now, okay, I just want to remind people that you and I had a conversation. We did a video with Ian Burlingham a few weeks back, and I'll link to it in the description below, where we went into more depths about how the English Constitution came about and the political ramifications. I have a question for you, which in a way is kind of personal, but it will apply to a lot more people than me. So I think you know my 21-year-old and soon to be 18-year-old never went to school. They were home educated. And there's the Children and Wellbeing Bill going through Parliament now, which, if it becomes law, will take away parents' ability and powers to choose whether their children attend school or not. Because the local authority could just change the rule and say, no, you have to go to school. And if you don't send your kid to school, we're going to fine you and even imprison you. And there's no right of appeal. Now, to me, that's a violation of natural law. The children belong to the parents, not the state.
I agree.
That's a violation of God's law. The children belong to the parents, not the state. So then what? And also, I think in the Bill of Rights, it says that the Parliament shall not pass any laws that are to the pejorative of the people. The Coronation Oath Act says that the job of the monarch is to preserve and protect the laws and customs
Correct.
of the people. And it's customary for parents to make decisions about their children's education. So then, is there any way that somebody could use the Bill of Rights and the Coronation Oath Act as a bulwark against this encroaching legislation?
Yes, there is. So as a comment on what you just said, if and I can't remember who quoted it. It is a quote, but I can't remember where it come from. If you send your children to a Roman school or university, don't be surprised when they come back supporting Caesar.
Yes.
Right. So which is why you need to educate your children yourselves on history, the real Constitution of England, and the real country of England, not the British Union, which is being portrayed at the moment. But the question is, can you use the Bill of Rights and our constitutional laws? The answer is yes. The problem that you have got is that most solicitors, and I'm talking about the majority, and barristers and judges have been misinstructed from universities. Remember, the Marxists, and so two groups of people have come together to create the problems we've got now. One is the Muslim Brotherhood, and they're a Marxist, not very nice organisation. They was originally set up, I believe, by the British. And then you've also got the Fabian Society, which are Marxists. When you understand that them two groups of people have come together to create what you've got now, which is a Marxist, communist, Soviet society in Great Britain, right? You need to understand that the slow march through the institutions has been ongoing for at least 100 years, maybe longer, right?
Yeah.
And what they've done is removed, I'll give you an example, they removed the Constitution from the curriculum against the Acts of Union, I may say, chapter 4 of the Acts of Union, that all these rights must be communicated to the people, right? It's exactly where this comes from. Right, so on the screen now you'll see that, or you should see that.
Constitution of the United States.
Exactly. So the people who swear allegiance, they don't swear an allegiance to the flag, and they don't swear an allegiance to the president. They swear allegiance to the Constitution, right? Because it's the United Independent States of America. In reality, it is a direct mirror of England of the 1600s. right? So when people understand what has happened, they will understand that the institutions, they removed constitutional law from our education system in the early 1970s. They removed it from the bar exams from the early 1970s. What happened in the early 1970s? We went into the European Union. The European Union is a communist, not Nazi organisation. And once people understand what they did, that's why they tried to impose upon the European Union and countries absorbed into that union, just like the Soviet Union. And where did it come from? It came from Britain. They need to understand that when they tried to impose that constitution, many countries stood up and said, no, we don't want it. People need to understand that Scotland and England and England and Wales have got separate constitutions, there's separate cultures and separate nations. In fact, Scotland is a complete separate jurisdiction legally to England. And when people realise what's gone on, right, then they will understand we need to go back to our original sovereign people and sovereign nations. And you've said on a number of occasions now about sovereign people. Sovereign nation is an extension of sovereign people. And I want to make sure people understand this. In 1688, we was known as a kingdom without a king. So what happened when we was a kingdom without a king? It went back to Parliament and a convention Parliament of 1688, which was the people without a king. And we were the people that put forward the English Bill of Rights, the Declaration of Rights, of which there's a trilogy: Declaration of Rights, Declaration of Reasons, and the Bill of Rights. It was a trilogy. And then there was an additional element to that, which was the Act of Settlement of 1701. So when people understand what's happened to us and who has taken control of us, we lost the Second World War. But we lost to the Soviets, who are atheist, right? And once you understand that, you understand why they want to get us fighting each other.
Yep. Classic divide and rule. And they're doing it with, I want to move it on because to raise the colours, where there is a campaign in this country, in England, for people to they're putting up English flags, and they're putting up everywhere, and councils are pulling them down. And it's insane because, people can put up Pakistani flags, Palestinian flags, Ukrainian flags, not an issue. But English flags and even the Union Jack is being pulled down. Council resources are being spent on it. And what I think it's doing is creating resentment and fueling a backlash against, I suppose, those that are putting up Pakistani and Palestinian flags and Ukrainian flags, just more and more divide and rule. And I just want to say, Graham, it no longer applies to me anymore, but growing up in London in the 70s and the 80s, I was very, very left-wing, very political. And there was a time where the England flag, I associated it with right-wing racists like the National Front and the BNP. But I don't think that's the case anymore. We have a situation now where English people are, as a community, as a culture, are being attacked and destroyed. The indigenous population, just like the British imperialists did with the indigenous populations in South Africa and India and the Americas. All empires eat their own, and they're now doing it with the indigenous people here. So then when people put up an English flag, it's no longer about, oh, we don't like people with different skin colors or anything. No, it's an assertion of their cultural identity, which should be celebrated just like the assertion of any cultural identity. That's my take on it.
I agree. So what is currently going on, I think the question was, you're now, so all over the world, the British have honed a statecraft skill. And that statecraft skill is called a colour revolution. And what you're currently seeing, although it hasn't actually come out and people haven't been told that, what you're seeing is other nations and the people allowing England to rise and take themselves back from the British Empire, right? Because we are a colony. England is a colony of the British Empire. Scotland is a colony of the British Empire. Wales, technically, is a colony of the British Empire. And then once you see what's actually going on, you'll understand that this is a colour revolution in reverse to remove the people that are causing the wars all around the world. That's exactly what's going on. So again, some people don't like me saying this. The Union flag is the enemy. The English flag is they are your friends. The Scottish flag is your friend. The Welsh flag is your friend. The Northern Irish, because Northern Irish is a separate nation, right, to Southern Ireland, just like England is an island with Scotland one end and England the other. It wasn't the fault of the Northern Irish that created that problem. It was a Scottish Catholic king that picked up the border people who were Protestant on both sides of the border and renditioned them to Northern Ireland, and they created their community, right? So that must be respected, that they have their own community. They fully endorse the English Bill of Rights. And that is the point of what we're all trying to say, just to make sure your audience is aware of this. The Isle of Man, all right, is fully independent. It's a protectorate of England, technically, right? The Isle of Man was never in the European Union. Its parliament voted against it. The Isle of Man come out of lockdown before anyone else because their parliament voted for that. And yet the inhabitants or the population of the Isle of Man is 80,000. The population of Northern Ireland is 1.9 million. The population of England is somewhere in the region of 50 million people. And we are the economy of this island. We should do exactly what President Trump is doing and use tariffs, build up our own economies and all live together in peace. And we can do it. But what you need to do is reject the British imperial system. So just to make sure I'm clear on this, I am not a communist. I am not a Nazi, i.e. a fascist. I am an Englishman. And we have a different view on how this place should be run because we are all sovereign.
Absolutely, because communism and fascism don't allow for people to be sovereign. They're under the thumb of the state, which is increasingly happening here. And one of the ways that they're under the thumb of the state, that this government, like the WEF-sponsored Davos, City of London-controlled governments in Australia and Canada and under Biden and in the European Union are doing with these open borders. Now, I've said to you, and I've said on my channel before, I'm an immigrant. I came here when I was 5. I was brought by my father and my mother and my older brother who was with us and my younger sister. But there was a job for it. There were jobs for my dad. He was interviewed. He was vetted and settled here. And because my dad had a job to come to, he had to be responsible. And there's that level of immigration because, work was needed or whatever, right? There was jobs to be filled because the economy was expanding. And then there's what's happening now, which is completely different. It's completely different. Mostly military-age men without jobs and without wives and children that would keep them on the straight and narrow and behaving themselves, and with jobs because the economy is expanding, coming in, being put in hotels, often paid for by the government by our taxes in the absence of economic growth. This is the weaponization of population movement, which the British have done before. They moved Indians into Kenya to compete with local peoples, for example. So do you want to give your views onto that, and then you can move on to what's happening in Epping as well?
Well, so you're absolute. So to make sure my point is clear on this, right, I have no problem with immigration. The problem I have is why have the British universities and schools failed with the population that we have to train our own people to do them jobs? That's the first thing. The second is that if immigrants come into the country and they respect our constitution, they should respect that the Act of Settlement 1701 states that you cannot be in any position of authority unless you were born of English parents, right? Again, that isn't a racial issue. That was brought in to defeat what was happening with the Dutch, who were the same race as us, right?
Yeah.
So people need to understand that I am not against black people, brown people, yellow people, etc. But you need to understand, to protect our culture, to protect our constitution, protect our future generations, whether they be black, white, or yellow, brown, whatever, it doesn't matter about the race, to protect them future generations so we all carry the eternal flame of freedom and pass it to the next generation, you need to skip a generation. Because otherwise people start bringing in their cultures, which we're not interested in. We spent well in excess of 1,000 years building England successfully on our own. Right?
Graham, if I can just interrupt you, I don't want, and you don't want, the English people to go the way of the, I don't know, dozens and dozens of Native American tribes they had their history, their culture, their legacy, their traditions destroyed by the forceful importation of alien cultures.
Exactly. Well,
the world is poorer for that.
So let me just make sure I'm clear on this as well, right? Who was it that stopped slavery? And the answer is the English, not the British. Wilberforce was on our side. I'm not saying he wasn't. He was. But we stopped slavery, in particular, with a particular judge, and his name was Sir John Holt, Lord Chief Justice Holt. He made a number of rulings, and as it increased, it went to Lord Mansfield. Lord Mansfield, in the Somerset versus Stuart case in 1772, stopped slavery. Now, just to make sure everyone's aware of this, because people are not aware of this, right? That was the shot heard around the world, because the English have said, we've already been slaves. We fought against it. It's always been unlawful in England. And that judgment on its own was enough to start to stop it all around the globe. And then for 20 consecutive years in the early 1800s, Wilberforce tried to progress that as what's known as positive law. In other words, put it into statute, not just the common law, even though the common law controls statute. And it took him 20 consecutive years to get it passed through Parliament. Every year, the British rejected it, right? The English had put it into the common law. The British had rejected it. Why am I saying this? Because people was coming from all over around the world to get to England to be free, right? And once people understand, the people that owned the boats, the slaver boats, the people that owned the insurance companies, and there's a big case about a particular group of slaves that were thrown overboard, right, and drowned, because the insurance company would pay out if they was lost at sea, but not if they turned up dead on shore, right? So they threw them overboard to drown. The people who owned the insurance companies, the people who owned the ships, the slavers, the people that owned most of the plantations, in particular in the southern states of America, were Jews.
And they all had ties to the City of London, I suspect.
They did. And if you go back to the Magna Carta actually tells you that the banking and financial rights of the City of London, every other town and city in England has the same rights. That has all been removed. Who has it been removed by? The British, right? So remember, the Magna Carta is English, right? It is not British. It is English. And when people understand exactly what's going on, let me tell you something. One of the greatest elements of Islam is no usury. If you understand the history of usury, and usury has destroyed virtually every single advanced civilization in the world, who are the people that are pushing through and want usury? There's two groups of people. One are the Roman Catholics that are associated with Rome and the Roman Empire, and the other group of people are the Jews. So, and again, I want to emphasize this. I'm not talking about all Jews. I'm not talking about all Catholics.
Banking cartels. The banks.
They're cartels. They are. It's organised crime, which so I refer to these people as Jewish mafia, right? And if you really want to understand, if there's any group of people that you cannot talk about, and if you even mention their name negatively, you go to prison, right? Basically, that's the Jews. So who are the people that are causing the most problems? It isn't technically Islam. And again, there are many people. I say what I believe and what I've read from the archives, right? So when you look at, for example, Mustafa Gaddafi, right? He created in his country a system where usury was banned, right? He created a system where the wealth of the nation from oil was put back into society, right? He created a system where if you got married and got a mortgage, they would give you X amount off of the mortgage when you created that type of mortgage. Here's the kicker. What he actually said was every child that you have will take 25% off your mortgage. So he guaranteed that family would have at least 4 children because he understood how, right, Libya would grow and grow with people that loved Libya. That has all been destroyed by the British.
Yes, because what the British don't want, what the City of London don't want, what the banking cartel don't want are sovereign peoples living in sovereign nations. And just a slight correction, it was Muammar Gaddafi. But I want to, said Mustafa Gaddafi, I want to go to the Epping case. Now, most of my viewers are in the United States, so you might want to give a little bit of a background and tell us what happened today.
So the first thing for everyone, I don't know when this video is going to go out, but
Pretty soon.
It really needs to go out because people are believing that they've lost the case. That isn't the case, right? So what happened today was the
little background. There is a hotel in Epping, which is a suburb just outside London, northeast of London. It's a very quiet, leafy suburb, beautiful forest there as well. And the Home Office were putting in migrant men. There were lots of protests by locals about these migrant men because I don't know how many women locally or girls were assaulted by these allegedly by these migrant men, right? And it does happen. You bring in these testosterone-fueled men with alien attitudes and everything, nothing to do, no work. Well, crime is going to go up, and it has gone. It does go up in those areas. So local people were protesting. The council then won a court case which said that the hotel couldn't be used as a migrant hostel because it had a change of use. It was no longer working as a hotel.
Correct.
And the government
an injunction. They didn't win a court case. They got an interim injunction.
Interim injunction. Thank you.
So what's important is for us to tell the truth and not do what the mainstream media are doing, which is trying to fuel this stuff, right? So they won an interim injunction to stop the government. This is the local council, won an interim injunction and said it's unlawful what they're doing, which it is, right? It goes against the planning regs, etc. And they said you can't be using this as asylum seekers. It's not a hotel. It's not the function it was given a license for. Therefore, it is unlawful. And the High Court then put an interim injunction on the hotel, which is owned by Somalians, right? So, which is also fueling the fire of what's going on. They've picked this for a reason, right? Mm-hmm. And the local people of Essex, I don't know if people are aware of this, but Essex rifles actually repelled a Napoleonic invasion, right? Before, right? The people of Essex will not stand for this nonsense. And they've stood up and they've come out. The women have come out. The men have come out. There's agitators, which I believe are British agitators, in the crowd causing problems, right? This should be completely peaceful. Raise your colours, which is the English flag, and in Essex, your Essex County flag, which used to be a kingdom, right? And you raise that and you say, we're not tolerating your British imperial rules over our rights, right? English rights. So today, what the government applied for was an appeal of the injunction. So the actual case will be heard in October. So the appeal court judges today have sided with the UN, the regulations on asylum seekers, and anyone who knows anything asylum, you will understand that what these people coming over and dumping their passports and travelling through a number of safe countries to get here, right, will understand that it is unlawful what they've done in the first place. They are illegal immigrants, right?
Just on that, Graham, they're not asylum seekers.
No, they're not.
Men from Albania are not asylum seekers. Men from Algeria are not asylum seekers.
No, I absolutely agree. So the problem we've got at the moment is the media are pushing that this is a big loss. The government have literally applied and they've stated clearly that asylum seekers have priority rights over the English and the English communities, right? So they've stated that in a court of law. Everyone understands what's going on now. The next part of this case will be heard in October, and what you need is what I describe myself as an English common lawyer, right? So every Englishman is a common lawyer. That used to be the phrase. Everyone knew their rights, everyone knew their constitution. The problem is that the British lawyers and the British solicitors, British barristers, etc., are suggesting that Parliament and particularly Parliament is sovereign. That is not the case, right? So what these people need in Epping is an English constitutionalist to persuade, as what's known as an intervener, and I've intervened in other cases previously, to put the case for the local community constitutionally, right? So once we put that forward, that's in October, and that case is going to be held, and the people of Epping really need. So again, do not use British solicitors, do not use British barristers or King's Counsel. Their oath is to a different system. My oath, which I have taken, right, is an oath to England and to the Constitution of England and to God. That's it. And what I put forward in that court is exactly legally, lawfully, in every way possible, what the actual Constitution is. And just to make sure everyone's clear on this, what trumps European Convention rights is the English Convention rights. The English Constitution, and especially the Bill of Rights, came from a convention parliament in England when we did not have a king. And once people understand our rights are far more powerful, there's an old saying that we use a lot: the British have rules, the English have rights. So everyone out there, I don't care what colour you are, you should be standing up and saying, I'm an Englishman. I have rights. That's it. And that's what we intend to project into the court and the High Court, and it could potentially be in the Supreme Court in October.
Fabulous, fabulous. And that's really important. It isn't that government gives us freedoms and liberties. No, we are born with them. We are born free. We are born sovereign. We are born in God's image, however that you might want to express it. So and governments are, and especially this government, particularly anti-God and anti-human. Graham, I know you're also doing a court case with regards to your election.
Correct.
You stood for an election. Do you want to just give a little bit about what's happening now? Because I think that's a really important case.
It is an important case. It was in the High Court. We had lots of support from all over the country and from Runcorn and Hillsby.
What you're alleging is when you were running for election, running as an MP, as a prospective MP in the last general election, that you were treated unfairly because the post office didn't distribute your leaflets, which is a violation of electoral law.
Correct. So the judge has already pushed that to one side. There is going to be an appeal on that. The police interfered with our election. There's going to be, because they pushed that to one side. But now the two people that are currently, we're waiting for the judgment, is on the returning officer and on Sarah Putin, who is basically the Reform candidate. There was only 6 votes in it. I personally saw just over 100 votes for myself. So 2 bundles of 50 and anywhere between 10 and 20 votes for us. I know there was a lot more than that, right? The point, because we're the only people who stands up for disabled and retirees, right? Because we're the worst paid pensioners in Europe, right? Because they believe we're slaves. So the major point is that we're waiting for the judgment to be handed down. Obviously, if we lose that, I've got to repeal it. I'm already appealing the 2 other elements. I've said that in the High Court. But I was presenting our case to 2 judges. So just for people to understand, there were 6 votes in the election. There was only 6 votes between Sarah Patchin and the Labour candidate. They announced that I only had 50 votes, right? Bearing in mind, the last election I stood in the north of England, I got 1,007 votes. Another election in London I stood in, I got exactly 50 votes, right? And they bundled the votes in 50s. So the statistical probability of you getting 50 votes in London and 50 votes in the north of England is, as someone from the Royal Society of Statisticians told us and made a statement, it's 1,000,000 to 1, right? So it's just not going to happen. So obviously something's wrong. But if you imagine there's 6 votes in it, and I personally saw with my own eyes over 100 votes, but where did them other votes go to? That's what the court case is about. But it is systemic in British elections now, cheating. And the court that we're in is a specialist court. It is in effect the court of common plea. It is a proper common law court. And I presented that case, and we're now waiting for the judgment to be handed down. I don't expect to win, and I expect to challenge it to the Supreme Court. But what I will say to people is, we wrote a letter to the United States Secretary of State. Is it Rubio?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, Marco Rubio.
Marco Rubio. And we sent it by a special recorded delivery, and 2 people from the American embassy turned up in that court hearing and made themselves known to the court usher to say that we have an interest in this case.
Very interesting. Very, very interesting. Graham, it's more power to your elbow. I think we can all empower ourselves by getting smart and learning about the English Constitution and using it and applying it, getting familiar with it. Because what's great about the Americans, they all know about their First Amendment and Second Amendment rights, whether they agree with them or not. You know, New Yorkers may not agree with the Second Amendment, but they know it's there. And they also know about the Fourth Amendment, which would have prevented CBDCs if we had something like that here. So we have to get smart and learn about the English Constitution. Now, you do events around the country as well, giving talks and everything. Do you just, before we finish up, do you just want to say where people can find you and follow your work?
So there's 2 main places. Firstly, you can find me. I've been banned on virtually every platform. You can find me on Twitter as English Exit. I think that is now my 3rd or 4th account. Every time I get over it, I'll get thousands, tens of thousands of followers. They take the account down. You can find me on Rumble, which is the Full English Show, right? And anyone who follows me knows that we welcome everyone, right? We're certain, in other words, the Scots, the Welsh, the Irish, whatever you are, as long as you believe in the English Constitution and you believe in England and the rights, inalienable rights, then we're fine with you. So the Full English Show on Rumble, there is now a small channel. I did have a channel on YouTube that was just under 100,000. They took it down with thousands of hours of work. We then recreated it and got 25,000 subscribers. They took it down. I had another one with 2,500 subscribers. They took it down. They only take down the truth tellers, right? So the British in particular, the propagandists, do not like what I am telling people. But I have taken an oath to tell you the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help me God. And that is exactly what I do. Even if I don't like the truth, I will tell you the truth. And if other people don't like the truth is the imperial British system is the problem. And it needs to be removed. And we can do it. We can do it in a structured manner. And everyone in the world can go back to living in peace. That's what we want to do. So you can find me on any of them platforms. English Exit on Twitter, the Full English Show on Rumble, and again our website is the English Constitution Society.co.uk. That's where we do the educational seminars where I teach people about the Constitution. And by the way, just to make sure everyone's aware of this, I'll just do this occasionally to make sure people are aware. This is not a green screen. Right? And again, from these books, and that particular book is Halsbury Statutes, 4th edition, volume 10, and it actually says constitutional law, right? So you have a constitution. We exported it to the United States of America, and on that side we've got other books there, the common law constitution as well as the statutes. People need to understand there are people like me out there. There's not many of us, but I'm not. I only deal with the real law, right? And I challenge the government, etc. I'm the only person in the UK that's ever, as a layperson, in other words, I'm not associated with a bar, I'm not associated with solicitors, etc. I'm the only person in the UK that's ever taken the British government to court in the European Court of Human Rights and gained an injunction against them. Right, so I do know what I'm doing.
You absolutely do. It's an education and a joy listening to you and talking to you. And Graham, I'm really, really fortunate to have this opportunity. So thank you so much. I look forward to having you on again at some point. And I'll link to the conversation that we had with Ian Burlingame because that provides a useful background. Please go and check out English Exit on X and also his channel. I'll link to that. And between now and when I see you next, was it unity over division and love over hate? This is Rich and Graham Moore signing out. All the best. Bye-bye.
Be lucky.